So you're probably wondering why I have my headphones on. Reason is that I'm gonna play some Call of Duty, Ghosts on my PC, and so I want to make it a bit of a commentary, and I don't want the sound coming out through my speakers. So I got my headphones on, got my controller here hooked up to my PC, and we're gonna play some Call of Duty Ghosts while I talk about poker. So I figured why not? Let's do some Call of Duty Ghosts. We'll talk about poker. And then if I feel up to it afterwards, we'll do some live play or some hand history reviews or something for today's vlog, doing some online poker. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and noob it up, play some Call of Duty Ghosts. This is how much a noob I am, is that I'm not going to use my PC. I'm going to use this USB Xbox 360 controller, and let's play some Call of Duty. So yeah, I'll see you in 1 second, and we'll get into the game. Alright, so I apologize ahead of time if I just straight noob this up, because I've only played this game once before, and I played it on my Xbox 360, so I don't remember everything. I'm not good at this game, but I'm going to give it my best chance, and my best go. So, let's talk about poker. Let's talk about poker while I'm playing this game, while I'm looking for another weapon. There we go. So, let's talk about some just basic concepts I get a lot of questions about, and one thing I get a lot of questions about is where should I start with when I'm trying to learn the game. Where should I start with, what type of course should I take, or what really should I try to learn? And in terms of what the answer is it just really depends on where you are with the game and with poker, to be honest. So it depends on your skill level. If you're a beginning poker player, I have lots of people that come to me and they say, I've read a couple books, I've deposited a little bit of money on a website, I played some sit and goes, some tournaments, some cash games. So, really, what should I do? What should be my focus with all this? And the answer is, for somebody that's beginner, I always recommend that people start with a 100 big blind cash game strategy. And just really starting with cash games, because with a 100 big blind cash game strategy, it teaches you an overall really solid strategy for playing the game. You learn how to play 100 big blinds deep, which when you play tournaments and you play sit and goes, you're not going to be playing 100 big blinds deep. And same thing for like spin and go and jackpot poker. That's the exact same thing. I mean, you're just going to be playing short stack, because that's the nature of tournament poker, right? So I always recommend that people start with cash game strategy, because I have some people, I've had some students that came to me and they've came in and they started playing sit and goes, and they come over to cash game and they're like, man, this is so much harder, because they're used to being in these situations where there's really not that many decisions. Either they're all in pre-flop or they're all in on the flop. And when you're playing 100 big blinds or 200 big blinds deep, 150 big blinds deep, you're forced to a lot more difficult decisions, knowing how to play pre-flop and post-flop effectively. Not just how to play pre-flop and really playing flop and just maybe like shoving the flop or shoving the turn. So I always recommend a general cash game strategy. I mean, it's always just, I think, a pretty solid choice. And then when you move to tournaments, you're just, especially when you get deep in a tournament, or you are playing deep stack tournament, you're just going to be so much more better overall as a poker player than your opponents. Yes, there's tournament-specific concepts and strategies, but I just always think that starting with cash is probably a pretty solid choice, rather than just jumping right to tournaments. And I think that's why a lot of people have a hard time transitioning from tournaments to cash. Whereas I think if a solid cash game player decided to go to tournament play, they just understand tournament-centric concepts such as ICM, push fold, and things of that nature, and leveling, and all that types of different things. So yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. Now, in terms of another question I get that is a pretty common question is people ask me about coaching. Oh, shit, damn. I just got effed up. Objective failed. Oh, I got too close. My bad. It looks like it's actually part of the thing, I guess. Okay, got to get off the street, yo. So yeah, let's talk about coaching. So, what's a good strategy for coaching? And should I go ahead and should I consider getting coaching? Am I ready for coaching? How much should I expect to pay for coaching? Is it a good thing for me to even consider for my game? Is it going to be valuable? Well, for a lot of people at the Micro Stakes, I honestly think coaching is not a good deal in terms of an investment. So if we think about anything we do for poker, we think about signing up for sites like Run It Once, Grinder School, Deuces Cracked, places like that. And then we think about purchasing books. We think about purchasing courses such as my courses. And we think about purchasing software such as Flopzilla, Poker Tracker 4, or Hold'em Manager, or all the various other software that's out there. We have to think about all that in terms of how it's going to help us improve our game and how it's going to help our bottom line, our profitability, and what type of ROI it's going to provide us. So if you're playing, like you're just getting into the game, playing Micro Stakes, you're playing 2-L or 4-L, are you really going to get a positive ROI from paying somebody $40, $50, $60 an hour for coaching? I mean, if you think about it, right? Let's think about because I think a pretty standard, rate for coaching these days at minimum, you're probably going to pay for somebody that's brand new to coaching $25 an hour, and that's somebody that has probably next to no experience coaching, or they're probably not that good. Any self-respected poker coach on any training site is going to charge you, even at the Micro Stakes, $50 upwards to $80 to $100 an hour, even for the Micro Stakes. So if we think about it from that perspective, let's say you're playing 2-L. Just to get a break-even return on your investment, if you're paying for $100 an hour, and let's just even drop it down to $50 an hour, you need to make $50 in profit just to break even. And let's face it, you're not going to just get one session of coaching, right? You're going to get more than one session of coaching. You're definitely going to be getting at least 3 or 4 or 5 sessions of coaching at minimum. So I don't think it's a good thing at the lower Micro Stakes. Now, once you get to stakes such as 25-L, 30-L, then things change a bit. So, and even at 10-L, if you have somebody that is going to, only charge you like $30 an hour, even at 10-L, you just have to get 3 buy-ins to break even. So, I think that things such as poker training sites, good modern poker books, and other choices are just going to be a better ROI for you. And to be honest, a lot of people just need a strong foundational understanding of the game, and poker training sites can provide that for you. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on coaching. But anyways, I think 8 minutes of playing this game is fine. I think I want to get into playing some live poker tonight. So let's switch over and let's play some live poker. So thanks for watching the gameplay. Hopefully I didn't noob it up too bad. But if I did, well, that's all right. Let's get this guy, and then let's play some live poker. So thanks for watching. On that note, as he shanks him with the axe, let's get into some live poker and get out of Call of Duty Ghosts. So yeah, see you in a minute on switching over to playing some live poker. All right, welcome to our live play session of tonight's vlog. So I just loaded up 4 tables of 6 max, regular 6 max on Ignition Casino. This top table up here is 10-L, and these 3 tables over here are 5-L. I'm actually going to get off of this table after this hand died out. The reason I got on it is because there were the 2 fish, and there was a full stack, and then everybody sitting out. So I'm going to get off this table. Kind of sucks. King 10 off. I don't know anything about anybody yet, so I am going to... well, it's close, to be honest. So big blind versus button opening, king 10 off. I think I actually can defend. So I'm going to defend. I think the fish will come along as well. So it gives us a little better, I think, odds post flop. But it is marginal. I mean, you can make a case for folding king 10 off in the big blind, but I think getting the odds that we are, especially with him limping in, it's much better. And you can always flop trips. So, I mean, you can flop trips. The only thing we're worried about here is ace 10, which would really suck, or jack 10. But for the most part, we're doing pretty damn awesome. So while these hands are going, I'm looking for another table. And I don't see any reason to raise this flop. I think we just call, keep the fish in, and hope that the turn card is a king. Pocket deuces in the small blind, probably going to be fold unless we have multiple callers. Typically don't want to be calling small pocket pairs out of position, out of the blinds. So again, we'll just check on the turn. Hope that he fires the second barrel. And I think this time on the turn we can go ahead and raise it up and look to get the money in. And if for some reason we're up against pocket jacks or jack 10, then so be it. We're going to get stacked. Or ace 10. I mean, our hand is so strong here that at 5 and L, I'm just not folding this strong of a hand. And he mucks, so given that he mucks there, I just don't know if we get any value on the river. He probably shuts down the river anyways. So I'm going to look for a fourth table to get loaded up, and ideally I would like to get a 10 and L table. So that's what I'm going to be doing is you'll see some tables popping in since I do use Table Tamer. A6 off, opening the small blind is probably near the bottom of my range potentially if I knew something about him, but I don't know anything, so I'm just going to opt for fold right now while I am looking for another table for 10 and L. And ace queen offsuit, we can just call. We don't need to turn it into a bluff. I don't think it's strong enough for a 3-bet when we know nothing about our opponent after 5 hands. So I do have another table 10 and L, so I'm going to do a little bit of reordering here. At least try to do a little bit of reordering. So let's get our 10 and L tables up here, and we'll put our 5 and Ls down here. This 3-bet is just so small. I mean, it's just, I'm not going to fold to that sizing with the amount of money in the pot. So I'm going to make the call with ace queen, flop top pair, top kicker. Only thing I'm worried about is him hitting the flush or him also having kings or aces. But when he checks here, the board is so wet we have to fire a bet when he checks and I hope that he doesn't. And I'm actually going to show him an ace just to F with him. Just to mess with him. Thinking that I bluffed him off a hand. So I'm never just flat calling there with pocket aces, so he's probably thinking, did he just bluff me or semi-bluff me with some sort of a draw? I just wanted to kind of think that way. So typically what I do on my sessions as usual is I start going through and tagging my opponents. So I guess I can start doing that. On this table, we can just typically just start looking at the short stacks and on all 4 of the tables, start looking at the short stacks and labeling them as fish. I think this guy's actually kind of aggro. So player 6, I'm going to tag him red. I think he's potentially semi-aggressive and probably fishy. And now we can definitely label player 1 down here as an aggro fish. I'm just going to label him as green for fish because that's just an insanely fishy move. And then back up to this table, definitely going to mark player 1 as a fish and player 2 as a fish. Fire around 2/3 pot as a continuation bet. I'm not going to tag him yet. He looks like he's a bit of a raggish stats, and for him, just a bit of an aggro fish. And I get check raise on this board texture. I think our hand is too strong to fold, so I think we have to call because there's straight draws and flush draws. So we're definitely going to call and see what happens on the turn. If he bets into me on the turn, we'll probably fold because we don't know enough about him. So we're potentially looking at, when he just bombs the turn, he's potentially looking at sets. So I think he probably always has a set here. I just don't see him overbetting the turn with just a missed flush draw. So it's fine to fold there. But I'm definitely not folding the flop. So we'll definitely list player 3 as a bit aggro as well. And I'll start checking out all the other tables. So for this table, for the 10 and L, player 3 definitely a fish. Don't really know enough about everybody else. And definitely not going to be raising our king 5 off. I'm just not strong enough to raise. And when it checks on the turn, I don't know how much showdown value we have, so I am going to take a stab on the turn with really not much showdown value. And this really sucks with the pocket kings. We don't get any action. So we really don't know much about the opponents on this table down here. And 7-8 off, I'm just going to fold. Definitely not going to call an under the gun open with queen jack off. Player 3, I'm just going to go ahead and list him as a fish since he's short stacked. And on this table, player 2 definitely looks to be a fish. Player 11 really not, or player 3 really not sure if he's overly aggressive or a fish or not. 4-5 off is going to be a fold. Player 5 looks to be a bit of a nitty fish. And player 2, we already marked, so definitely a fish. And let's make sure we have them tagged properly as a fish over here. King Queen offsuit, just easy flat call. This guy is very aggressive. Definitely not going to be folding. His ISO raise is small as well, so it makes me assume that he's probably more bad than he is good. King 10 offsuit, middle position. Definitely something you could consider opening if there's lots of fish, but I think it's a bit too weak when we don't know anything about our opponents in the blind, so I think it's fold. Expect this fish to call a lot. This is a very interesting flop with this opponent. We'll see how aggressive he is and how strong his range is. And we're definitely going to bet on this flop. It's dry board texture, but I think our hand is strong enough to bet there. Queen Jack suited under the gun. I think at 5-0 we can open. For beginning players, it's probably something you're going to want to fold. But I think for me, it's perfectly fine to open. Against his short stack fish, he's playing a 15-0 game. This is the thing that I really don't like. But given that I do have some backdoor equity with a hard draw and backdoor straight draw, I am going to bet. Don't need to bet too much on the turn here. The deuces are really dry. Just a bit of a blank card, so it really doesn't change much. If he has a king or 8, he's going to call anyways. So he does snap call me off over here with my small c-bet with the ace-high board. So I'm going to give up when I don't improve on the turn. When I don't hit a jack, I don't hit a queen, or I don't hit a heart, I'm not going to continue against this nit and just go to showdown. And he has pocket queen, so yeah. I mean, this guy's just super passive. And we're going to relabel him as yellow because somebody to watch out for that's playing overly passive with pocket queens. And 3-4 suited is pretty close. We are getting 5.5 to 1. I really don't know if this hand is strong enough to call even if we do hit a flush, it's a 4-high flush. Yeah, we could hit 2 pair, we could have a straight. But it's seeing that it is only one big blind and I am making a video, I will call, and you can always flop 2 pair. So I think on this board texture, I'm going to take a check raise line, hoping that somebody bets on this board texture. And when nobody bets, I'm going to lead out on the turn. Definitely when the board gets a lot wetter with a backdoor club draw, and if somebody has an ace, they can have the wheel draw as well. And if somebody has 5-6 or ace-5, they could also have just hit the wheel. But I was just hoping that somebody would lead out there, but nobody does, so we ended up having to lead out on the turn, which is perfectly fine. So player 4 down here looks to be a fish. So just definitely take note of all the fishy opponents and we'll start marking them. Player 8 looks to be somewhat fishy, but we're not going to label him as a fish yet. Neither are we with this opponent. We'll just label these 2 opponents as a fish, and we'll go ahead and survey this table again. Guy looks to be a bit nitty, but he could just be card dead after 17 hands. This guy, again, he looks to be a bit aggressive, but he could just have a lot of cards, a lot of strong cards that he's getting, so we're not going to list him as aggro as a fish either. And so ace queen, this is very interesting. We're definitely, I don't think it's strong enough to squeeze an under the gun raise. So, and I don't know if I have enough fold equity, so I think flatting is probably the best move here, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's close, so I am going to flat. And we're going to ISO raise with king jack off. And then on this board texture, we're pretty much done with this hand. Pocket deuces will open in middle position. We get a flat call from the 50-0, so player 1 looks to be a fish. This is a very interesting flop because king queen definitely beats us. I don't expect him to have king queen. These 2 opponents, I'm not really sure. I think we do need to fire a continuation bet on this board texture. And against a 41-24, I don't know anything about him. I am going to represent the king because I don't know if he's a thinking poker player or not. So might as well just lead out representing the king and see what type of opponent he is. And wow, we get through with king jack off there. Okay, I'll take that. And so when he does call, I'm just going to give up. Just fire 1 barrel against him, and when it doesn't work against his opponent, then we'll just give up and live to play another day. And if he had a king, good for him. If he had a 6, he just hit trip 6s on the turn, so good for him. We're going to muck our deuces. So the plan with this video is to make it 20 minutes or close to 20 minutes. We're at 14 minutes, so we'll go for about another 6 minutes. Ace-4 off under the gun, definitely not strong enough to open. Ace-6 offsuit, not strong enough to ISO raise. I don't want to complete. I just think it's a bit of a junky hand, so I'm just going to muck. Give up my half of a big blind. Ten-8 offsuit, just going to go in the muck and the cutoff. Ace-9 of hearts, this is going to be interesting to see what happens with the hand. Definitely won't be calling a raise from this opponent or this opponent, but if the button raises, then we can definitely call. We could also 3-bet as a bluff. So now we're in a precarious position because I can't call one person, but I think this is a decent implied odds hand. So seeing how we are getting, there's 35 cents, 37 cents in the pot, 10 to call, so we're getting close to 4-1 on our money. So I think I am going to call, hoping for a decent flop. We don't get a very good flop, so we're just going to be looking to check fold on this flop if one of these 2 opponents bets. So checks around, we don't improve on the turn. You know, an ace, a 9, or a club helps improve our hand, but definitely not a 6. So with the way that the board is running out, we're just looking to check. 5-6 off, I think, is a bit too weak to open on the button. So I'm going to just fold 5-6 offsuit, and we'll fold our ace-9 suited. So against 2 opponents, we really don't have much equity. Yeah, we don't have showdown value, but it's a limp pot. There's only 3 big blinds in the hand, so I'm just going to check against 2 opponents. And player 1, I'm going to go ahead and mark player 1 as a fish, just because he's a short stacked opponent. He looks to be somewhat active with his HUD stats, but it's only 4 hands, so I really can't tell just yet. But I definitely am going to mark him as a fish just because of his stack size. And it looks like this table is dying out. However, there is a fish on the table. However, I don't really feel like playing 3 ways. I'd rather play on a full table just because of the rake at the micro stakes. And I'm not going to call a raise from a 21-0. And that's his very first raise after 2.5 orbits. So definitely going to fold our King-8 offsuit. And I'm not going to auto post. I'm going to see what happens with these 2 opponents when the blinds go around. And it looks like somebody else is coming back on the table. So on the button, King-5 suited, I think it's fine to open. Make a quick adjustment at 10 and L and just do 2.5x open. So I don't mind playing 4 ways with a 53-0 on the table. So I'm definitely going to continue playing. 7 deuce off, definitely going into the muck. And our seal attempt gets through. And we get pocket 10, so it's pretty awesome 3 ways. Fold the 10-8 offsuit. See what this guy's going to do in the small blind. So we're going to ISO raise, and we're going to raise it up to 60 since I am out of position to this opponent. Just going to make it a little bigger because he has a fish. And he snap calls as expected. He's playing a 50-0 game. It's only 60 cents. And they both call, and this is probably the worst board texture that could have hit on this flop. I mean, 2 overs. Now we have 3rd pair. Wasn't too worried about this opponent, but when this guy comes along, he's playing a 25 VPIP. So our hand just kind of just went down the toilet. And it's really not a good hand anymore. So let's hope he checks back and we can spike a 10 on the turn. And we can't call. When a 50-0 leads out on this turn, he either has a jack or an ace. And they love to limp aces, so we're just going to make a fold. I mean, just make a sigh and a fold and give up your hand. And it's just unfortunate for that hand. But you know what? It's good to know that he's willing to call a 6x raise, so we can make a much larger raise for an ISO raise. I mean, I can make it 70 cents and expect him to call. I could probably make it 80 cents and expect him to call. Six-10 offsuit. I'm just going to fold in the small blind. Jack-9 off, under the gun. Definitely going to fold. And we're not going to even call a min raise with ace-5 just because I don't know how these 2 opponents... Well, actually, I'm actually considering calling because of the fish in the big blind. I think he's always going to come along, and this is a really good implied odds hand, so I am going to call. I don't know how this opponent is going to react, so that was the bit of an iffy part in this hand, but I don't expect this guy to raise ever unless he has like the pure nuts. The flop is not the greatest flop in the world. This is where you get in trouble with a hand like this, with an ace-5 suited, because this guy is a new opponent to the table. We don't know if he has a strong or semi-strong ace. However, when they both check, we're just going to make a smallish bet on the flop on this dry board texture. and hope that neither of them has slow playing trip sixes. Ace Jack is just going to be a standard call, blind versus a button open. Pretty good flop for us to take a check call line. We're not as worried about flush draws because we block a lot of the higher flush draws. So an easy call. River or turn is actually pretty good for us unless he has a hand like King 10. And I think the only way to get value is to get him to bet the river. And we just make a call and hope he didn't run into two pair, and we end up chopping. So yeah, it's a fine result. All right, so we're at 21 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and end tonight's vlog, I guess, with Ace King. Against a 46-31, we're definitely going to look to get the money in pre-flop with Ace King. I think it's perfectly fine at 5-L against somebody that's been super aggressive. But he folds, which is perfectly fine. So I'm going to end tonight's vlog on that. I'm definitely going to continue playing my session. Probably record a lecture for one of my courses for MicroGrinder Poker School. But hopefully you enjoyed our short 21-minute live session playing 5-L and 10-L. Didn't really get into that many tricky spots, but I think it was some pretty good play overall. I'm up $2.46. So yeah, you know, it's always nice to win some money at the micro stakes while we're playing a live session for our vlog. So if you liked the video, please click the thumbs up. Hope you like the Call of Duty as well. Try to mix it up a little bit, and you know, figured why not play a little bit Call of Duty. So definitely click the like button if you like the video. If you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe to MicroGrinder Poker School's YouTube channel. And if you haven't been over to our website, microgrinder.com for MicroGrinder Poker School, definitely check us out. Lots of free and low-cost resources for you, our micro stakes poker players. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. So take care, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you at our next vlog.